Okay, we are live. The H1B guy here, and today the H1B guy live, unedited, unscripted, um, Q&A 5, discussing more on the H1B IFR, the November visa bulletin, more on S386, and we'll do our Twitter Q&A and any YouTube Q&As that come in the chat. Um, Wanted to thank everyone who's taking the time to join me here today. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. It helps me to produce more content like this for you. I also wanted to mention that the H1B Guy offers a variety of consulting services. If I can help you or your employer review your case and help advise you on the best case for you, please reach out. I'd love to hear how I can help you. So today I wanted to start with the H1B IFR. Um, Over the last several days, there's been a lot of news around the lawsuits that have been filed um, on behalf of several different clients. And I wanted to read off a couple of those clients here, just because I have looked at them and I thought the list was pretty interesting. But defendants in several of the lawsuits include the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the National Association of Manufacturers, the Bay Area Council, and here's some interesting ones: Stanford University, Purdue University, University of Michigan, University of Denver, Chapman University, Bard College, Arizona State University, Indiana University, and then Dentists for America, Physicians for American Healthcare Access, Information Technology Industry Council, and IT Serve Alliance. The interesting thing about the Chamber of Commerce and the National Association of Manufacturers is that they were the defendants that were issued in the travel ban and the exceptions. So, we're talking, I think the numbers are somewhere around 14,000 plus employers that are part of those associations. So you're talking about fairly large, trade associations with the Chamber of Commerce, as well as the NAM, the National Association of Manufacturers. Um, Very interesting. We knew when this announcement came out, gosh, it was 2 weeks ago today, that the lawsuits were forthcoming. I mean, I think you saw a lot of the immigration attorneys out there that were some working on pro bono, others not. But here are the suits. As we know, DHS, Department of Labor, have fast tracked this interim final rule. So it'll be interesting to see how the lawsuits can either slow that or impact it. I think the biggest thing that's being challenged right now when we look at the H1B IFR is really the wage levels and the discrepancy associated with that. Um, so I haven't read through the suits. I just looked at the plaintiffs, was curious to see who was filing, being willing to be named as defendants or plaintiffs, I guess, in this situation. But going to be very interesting to see how it all shakes out. We'll continue to monitor, the pending lawsuits. So wanted to discuss the November visa bulletin. Twitter follower RC19 Methune says, November visa bulletin is going to be a shocker, and it would only be coming next week. I had said earlier in the week, I think Monday or Tuesday, that I was predicting it would come out today. 1 o'clock, a little after 1:05 now Eastern time here on Tuesday, October the 22nd. And, there's no telling if that will come out. Typically, they release them in the morning. So, Mithun may be right here, maybe next week. But, we've seen the discussions around rapid forward movement and what that may mean. I think a lot of us are looking to have the rapid forward movement defined. I wanted to take a few minutes here today. I just wanted to kind of do my prediction on what that may mean. I've talked to a lot of you, and there seems to be this growing sentiment that we could be looking at 18 months forward movement. So I wanted to read over some of the the October dates and go over what 18 months forward movement would look like for those. So I'm going to start with the final action dates. I'm going to cover India and China, as I think that those are both, very critical, telling signs. Biggest backlog community are, Indian and Chinese nationals. So EB2, starting with India, EB2 for India shows a September 1st, 2009. So 18 months forward would be March 1st, 2011. That's final action date for EB2. EB3 currently shows January 15th, 2010. 18 months forward would be July 15th, 2011. Going to China for these final action dates. So China EB2 shows March 1st, 2016. 18 months forward movement would be September 1st, 2017. And then EB3 for China, July 1st, 2017. 18 months forward movement there would be January 1st, 2019. So wanted to move and shift now to the filing date, because this has been the one that we've been talking about a lot. This was the biggest mover. And as we've talked about, kind of historically speaking, how the Department of State has interpreted the final action dates as they're currently using, the final date. So India EB2 currently shows May 15th, 2011. If we were to rapid forward movement 18 months, we'd be at November 15th, 2012. So a lot of those in EB2 that have been debating, if I'm 12, 13, priority date 2012, 2013, what do I do? I've heard a lot of 12 deciding to sit pat, sit tight. So again, if we were to see 18 months forward movement on EB2 for India, that would be November 15th of 2012. So really good news for maybe some of you in EB2 who decided to sit. Again, these are just my predictions based on an estimate, a guesstimate, really. So EB3 for India right now, January 1st, 2015, 18 months forward movement will be July 1st of 2016. And then wrapping up with China, EB2 for China, filing dates, October 1st, 2016, 18 months forward would be April 1st, 2018. And then EB3 for China shows June 1st, 2018, 18 months forward would be December 1st, 2019. So cover all of this to say that we're going to continue to be on the lookout for the November visa bulletin. I am very curious to see what rapid forward movement means, as I've been talking about for the better part of a month now. But that will give us some feel of what that will mean then for December and even January, because those were also months that were mentioned and alluded to under the rapid forward movement. So wanted to shift to an update around S386. Wanted to talk about it just a little bit here today. There's a YouTube question that came in. And I'll get to that towards the end, but probably going to answer that right now here as I cover this, but we'll get back to it. So in my video that I posted on October 31st under the H1B Guy addresses, will S386 eventually be passed by the U.S. Senate? For those of you who have watched the video, no. For those of you who haven't, spoiler, my answer was no. And I felt like a lot of the dominoes that had fallen leading up to it, Senator Durbin's blocking of S386, and then his bipartisan consent that then led to, as I've alluded to, WWE style Senator Rick Scott off the top rope with his language amendments, Rosetta Stone amendment, if you want to call it. And where he's held his block and willing to do that as a political favor. As I talked about, why did Senator Rick Scott object to S386? In both of those, I've talked about, Senator Scott was willing to do this as a political favor and take the assault that's currently happening. And he's going to do so knowing that S386 will remain where it does to the end of the year and then die before the 2021 season. And so what's very interesting is that these events that have transpired after, I did that video on August 31st, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing, the negotiations surrounding the second stimulus. So what we have right now is really a Senate that's in limbo, and S386 is not the priority, unfortunately. And so you've got Supreme Court Justice nominee Amy Coney Barrett still needing to be confirmed, right? And that's with the election looming. And you also have the ongoing stimulus negotiations, the second round of stimulus that we've been talking about, that's been in the news a lot. I don't really cover that here on this channel, but I'm talking about it today because we need to talk about how it affects S386. And so tomorrow marks 6 business days until the election. And so what does that mean? I think it means that no movement on S386 between now and the election is all but guaranteed. Senate's going to be wrapped up in the confirmation of the Supreme Court justice and any sort of accelerated vote surrounding the stimulus package. So, unfortunately, that's the way I'm reading it. I think a lot of you who are educated in this matter and have been fighting very hard on S386, are probably really disappointed to hear me say that. But keep fighting, keep the pressure on. Don't stop, because I feel like it's not going to be brought up here and will eventually die before 2021. So those are the couple topics I wanted to hit on today. Continued discussion on the H1B IFR. I also wanted to hit on, the November Bulletin, which, golly, I think we're all just kind of anticipating what it's going to look like. And then quick update on S386. Before we get to the Twitter Q&A, and any of you who are watching on YouTube, if you've got any questions, please post those in the chat so that I can get to them here today on the live stream. I wanted to ask you, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps with the YouTube algorithm, as you hear a lot of folks say, but it really does. It's funny when you have a bunch of likes on the live streams, how it actually promotes the content. I think a lot of you who may be watching understand, the H1B Guy platform is focused on employment-based immigration preferences. While my moniker and my handle is the H1B Guy, I cover a lot more than that. And just wanted to thank all of you who've taken the time to join this stream here today. So if you don't mind, go ahead, hit that like button. Going to move on to the Twitter Q&A, so I'll try to bring them up on the screen to the best of my ability here. Some of them are a little longer than others, but so at EVGuy7 asks, why is there so much uproar against revised H1B wage levels? Both AILA and also media, considering both have exclusively called H1B a cheap, low-skilled program. Well, I think it breaks the cycle, right? When you look at 30% salary increases to get to that 95 percentile for wage levels, it's a really big pill for a lot of employers to swallow, right? So what it's doing is it's forcing, right, employers to meet the standard or to let go of the employee. And so it breaks that cycle. And what's that cycle? It's H1B extensions, amendments, and renewals, okay? From a media perspective, though, I think it miffs and muzzles the debate, right? And what's the debate? That you start to peel back and look at these $145,000 to $175,000 salaries for skill levels 3 and 4. We're talking about pretty significant compensation, right? When you look at the average household income in the U.S. and what it earns, when you're talking about 40 to 75K salary, you're talking about 2, 3, 4 times what the average US household earns. And so it breaks the cycle, the H1B cycle that a lot of you are caught up in. And so I think that's why there is a big uproar in this, is that it completely eliminates the cheap labor discussion. If employers are willing to pay for it, then that individual is no longer cheap labor. So let's see, next question. Okay, at EV Guy 7, OPT crackdown, too little, too late. So what you're referring to here, and this is taken directly from ice.gov, was an announcement that came out yesterday, I believe, called, quote, Operation OPT Optical Illusion. The operation, which is ongoing, resulted in the arrest of 15 non-immigrant students who claim to be employed by companies that don't exist. 15 arrests took place in and around Boston, Massachusetts, the Washington, D.C. area, Houston, Texas, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Newark, New Jersey, Nashville, Tennessee, as well as Pittsburgh and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and included 11 Indian nationals, 2 Libyan nationals, 1 Sinhalese national, and 1 Bangladeshi national. This may not be popular, but I love it. I think it's great. We have to eliminate this fraud. There is no doubt about it. If we want to eliminate a lot of the misconceptions and mislabeling that surrounds H-1B visas, then we have to crack down on fraud. And a lot of that starts with OPT. It just does. Fabrication of education credentials, fabrication of resumes. So here we see this continued effort from ICE. And in that news release, they talked about it a good bit, that they're going to continue to do it. And that if you have any tips on any sort of fraud, to please let them know. That tells me ICE is going to continue to do this. We're going to continue to see this type of news releases come out. And I hope if it clears up a lot of the fraud that's happening in the OPT realm, great. I'm all for it. And if I catch flack for that, then so be it. But I am a huge supporter of legal merit-based immigration, right? If you follow this channel for any amount of time, you know that. And so if we can eliminate fraud specifically surrounding these F1s and OPTs specifically, then it has my support completely. Okay, so at Career Singh 1 asks, I wonder why are there lawsuits and such uproar when H-1B wages are increased, but no such sentiments from various organizations when the H-1B holders are literally yelling at the top of their voices for equality and permanent residency? As I alluded to earlier, it breaks the cycle, right? But what the answer to this statement really is, it comes down to this. It's about money and control. Takes away a lot of control from the employers. It's dictating the compensation. Now, not that that already isn't happening, but it escalates it significantly to a level that makes it no longer profitable for the employer, right? And why is that? Is it undercutting American salaries? No, that position just is not budgeted for that salary. And so now when we're talking about 25 to 30 to 40K increase on compensation, and the employer has to make a very difficult decision. And so it takes away some of that power from the employer. Now, H-1B screaming at the top of their lungs for equality? Yes. As we've talked about, I am a huge supporter of freedom to choose. And what do I mean by freedom to choose? I mean freedom to choose employer, freedom to choose wages. So how do we do that? How do we solve that problem that the H-1B visa creates where there isn't that freedom? It has that restrictive nature. And it comes back to some things that I've talked about, which are the H-1B EAD, an EAD with advanced parole rights, an H-1B EAD based on merit, some sort of merit-based point system. So that's the only way that we're going to get to where, honestly, the equality is there. I know a lot of you, with the dual intent surrounding an H1B, your ultimate goal is permanent residency. But let's focus on something that gives you some more freedom, and it comes back to that EAD with advanced parole rights. Um, but you know, I really appreciate you taking the time to ask me this question. I've enjoyed our interaction on Twitter. So at Kursing1, thank you. Really appreciate your question. Um, had another question. Let's see here. Okay, from at Raja Krishna 22. Will there be any light at the end of the tunnel for Greencard backlog at the end of this year? Wow, I hate to tell you no, but I don't think so. I don't think if I'm reading the climate and I'm being completely honest with you, I've had the opportunity to speak with you several times now. Ram, and I want to say that you and I have talked about, and I've been very transparent with you that I don't think so. And I think that that's a very tough pill to swallow. But what I want to tell you is this: don't stop. Don't stop the work that you're doing on social media. Don't stop working in numbers, because there's power in numbers. The power in numbers is your voice, but also it comes down to monetary contributions. Yesterday in the mail here at my residence, I had 14 political flyers. 14. And all of them were purchased by different PAC support groups. And so what does that say? Power in numbers. You have to assemble, and you have to have the monetary wherewithal to make that influence. And so that's my little soapbox today. But unfortunately, no. I will tell you, I've been talking to a lot of people, and behind the scenes, it sounds like there's some very big things in the works for 2021. Folks that are already working and anticipating the fact that S386 may die. And so, what will the new legislation look like in 2021? I'm aware of several folks that are already working on that, and going to hope that there will be some real reform for the better that's going to benefit everyone. And unfortunately, right now, as we've seen the dominoes that have transpired, going back to March 15th, that really hasn't been the case. H1Bs and Ls and other non-immigrants who are here working in the U.S., there's been a lot of action that has made them feel not welcome. And so let's hope that that ends very quickly, and let's hope that we can continue to win the human capital war that we're currently in, because if not, we will lose. Had another question that came in on Twitter. Let's see if I can put it up here. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is from at AJ9106. Sorry, I don't have your user ID up on the screen. But the question is, one, what is the status of H1B wages increase lawsuit? When can we expect the decision from any court? When H4 and H4 EAD premium processing becomes available, and any predictions on the November 2020 Visa Bulletin? Well, I covered the 2020 November Visa Bulletin predictions, which is basically where I said that I think, if I'm reading between what rapid forward movement actually means, it appears to me that we're looking at somewhere around 18 months forward. I'm basing that on just a couple of estimates and some conversations with some other folks that have kept up with this data for several years. But with that being said, what's the status of the H1B wages lawsuit increase? As I covered earlier, sounds like there's 3 different lawsuits that have been filed. Now has the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the National Association of Manufacturers named as plaintiffs. So you're talking about over 14 to 15,000 employers that are currently named in that lawsuit. If you go back to when the travel ban was continued in June, and then the lawsuit that had come out in July, the updates where the case was heard in the district court out in San Francisco didn't happen until the beginning of October. So you look at that, that's a couple of months. I think we could be January. Maybe that's a little bit conservative. Maybe we're looking at somewhere after Thanksgiving, mid-December, where that case may be heard in a district federal court. Um, what can we expect? I don't know. I mean, I think you've seen the courts be very pro on the plaintiff side as we've looked at these lawsuits surrounding the travel, the non-immigrant visas. The courts have sided for the most part, not always, but for the most part, they've sided with the plaintiffs. They've either blocked it or restricted the executive actions of the president, saying that he's worked outside of his power and authority. So I don't know. I mean, my expectation, we knew a lawsuit was pending. We knew it would be challenged in courts, and it appeared that the plaintiffs have a very strong case. So I could see it being rescinded. I could see that being a possibility. When is H4 and H4 EAD premium processing going to become available? I got asked that question, I think, in the last live stream, and I told you, I think my answer was I don't know. Really, who knows when premium processing for those dependents will be enacted? I know that was something that was mentioned as a way to continue and collect more fees. If you look at what the increase around the premium processing fee was, upwards of over $2,000. I mean, gosh, it seems like just yesterday it was $1,225 was the fee. And so I don't know. I mean, if USCIS is looking to increase their fees, understand that they are based on a fee-based model. They're going to have to get this sooner rather than later. But if they are in the budget deficit that we've been led to believe that they are, and they don't have the capital, the processing officers to process the cases to guarantee the turnaround time on premium, then I don't think you're going to see it anytime soon. So a prediction on this, if that's what we're looking for, February of 2021. Okay. So those are all the questions I had for Twitter. I had a couple come in on YouTube. I'll get to those now. But I do want to go ahead and ask you, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're currently joining me here on this stream, if you haven't already, please like this video. Really appreciate your support. If you have any questions for me, now is the time. I want to get to the YouTube Q&A now, and then would love to answer any questions that any of you watching may have. So now on to the YouTube questions. At Syed Ahmed asks, is there any chance of S386 getting passed this year? So this was a question I alluded to earlier that I was going to go ahead and answer, but I still wanted to bring it up. Syed, I want to thank you for taking the time to join me here on the live stream, for taking the time to post a comment here in my channel. Really appreciate it. But no, unfortunately, I don't think so. The way it looks to me is that Senator Scott's going to hold the block. I think that the way I'm reading it from everything that's happened in the administration is they want to continue to restrict the H1B. They don't feel like the H1B provisions under the 50-50 rule are exactly what they were looking to accomplish in terms of legislation. So no, I think that you'll see something different as it relates to resolving and addressing the green card backlog in 2021. I would think, Mike Lee, Senator Mike Lee from Utah, having spent 9 years in the U.S. Senate working on immigration reform, will get back to it. Hopefully, we can see some sort of bipartisan reform that eliminates the green card backlog and, helps benefit mutually employers, employees, and the U.S. economy. So, Syed, thank you. So at RP asks, do you think S386 would come back to the Senate after elections? It's a possibility. There is a small window of time. I haven't looked at the actual days in session, but I do know that there is some after the election, and I believe there's a little bit of time in December. So yeah, absolutely possible. And if it did, I'd be really interested to see what those debates would look like. If it were to come back on the floor and be called a unanimous consent, what would it take for Senator Scott to lift his hold? I think it would take the White House to allow him to do that. I mean, as he alluded to in his initial objection, that he spoke with the White House and they needed more time to review. And then after that, we've seen more restriction, more restriction, and more restriction. And again, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but immigration reform requires active Congress. A lot of it should not happen through executive action. And I think that's one thing that I've disagreed with President Trump and his administration on. If we look at the over 400 executive actions on immigration, some of them have rewritten what our current immigration system looks like. And that's not necessarily the executive branch's authority. So, RP, thank you for the question. Really appreciate it. RP asks, who do I think will be the next president? Wow, that's a very interesting question. I've covered the website 538 a good bit. I haven't looked at it this week, unfortunately. So I'm basing this off of data from last week where they were giving former Vice President Biden an 83% chance. So 83 times out of 100, he won the election. But if you looked at the polling going into 2016, there were a lot of folks that were in support of, Hillary Clinton, and she was leading in the polls all the way into election, kind of back and forth. But I read something earlier today that talked about a lot of the independent moderate votes that did not vote for Clinton could possibly vote for Biden. And so, I will tell you this. The polls say one thing, but to doubt President Trump and his ability to rally, I don't know. You want me to answer the question? I'm going to say it's President Trump. He's going to win re-election. I just don't see the numbers showing up for Biden in terms of the votes. Now, you look at some of the early voting numbers, and that has to be a very pro-Biden crowd. But again, I'm not a political pundit. I talk about immigration and immigration benefits, but that's just me keeping up with it. I'm very interested tonight, though, to see the debate and what a train wreck it's going to be, and if immigration will come up as a topic, because we've had 2 debates. I didn't watch the town halls, so if any of you out there did and immigration came up, I'd love to read it or watch it. I just didn't have time. I believe that was a week ago Tuesday. I just didn't get a chance to watch either one, but I will be watching tonight, and with a lot of popcorn. Very interested to see how they're going to cut these microphones off. So, RP, thank you so much for that one, for the comment. And, I think you left me another one. You said, I agree with you. I'm so happy at the OPT crackdown. You need to eliminate the fraud to come out of the cheap labor tag. Yep, absolutely. And I have a guy that emails me a lot and asks me what I thought about it. And my response was 2 words: love it! Exclamation point. I don't revel in others' misery, but if you're in this country illegally, there needs to be ramifications for that. There just does. There are too many folks that work too hard to come to the U.S. on legal employment-based visas for this type of fraud and others to be able to allow to get away with being in this country illegally, whether that's overstay or providing fraudulent documents. So, yeah, I agree with it, and I'm sure we're going to see more of it. But RP, thank you. Really appreciate you taking the time to join me here today, and comments that you've left me. Thank you. I have a few more, but if you guys have any, if you're out there, those of you that are currently joining, if you haven't already, please like this video. Give me a comment. I'd like to answer a few more before we wrap up here today. So, at Syed, Ahmed asks again, this 18-month move in EB2 you're guessing is based on visa allocation from family-based visa ? That means there's nothing allocated in the month of October. No. Honestly, it's a hunch based on at the bottom of the visa bulletin. it talks about, and I had it up, and give me a second, I'll just get to it. It says visa availability in the coming months. This is section F on travel.state.gov's October 2020 visa bulletin. And it says employment-based categories, potential monthly movement. And then employment second, worldwide, current, China, rapid forward movement, India, rapid forward movement. Employment third, worldwide, China, or worldwide, current, China, rapid forward movement, India, rapid forward movement, Mexico, current, Philippines, likely to remain at worldwide date. And then further down, it says the above final action date projections for the family and employment categories indicate what is likely to happen on a monthly basis through January. The determination of the actual monthly final action dates is subject to fluctuations in applicant demand and a number of other variables. Again, that's taken from travel.state.gov's October 2020 visa bulletin. So I'm just going off of a hunch and a guess. That's all. I know a lot of you who have followed this channel for any amount of time. My instincts been right a lot. My hunches have been right a lot, and that's just my hunch. If we need to come back next week and say, wow, I was wrong, rapid forward movement was 1 month, we can laugh uncomfortably about that. But thank you for the question, Syed. Really appreciate it. Let's see. You asked another question. Any idea where I can find details of prevailing wages and where I can find details with zip code and role? Yeah, that number is on the FDLC site. If you want to shoot me a message here on YouTube, I think you can DM me. If not, shoot me a DM on Twitter. That's at the H1B Guy, or you can email me, the H1B Guy at gmail.com, and I can send you that link. But you need to know the SIC code and the geographical MSA, which can be a little confusing, but you can find that information from your LCA, and you should have a copy of your current LCA. Okay. So thank you for that question. Any others? Let me check Twitter. Any other questions on YouTube before we wrap up today? If not, I'm gonna give everyone a few more seconds. I just wanted to thank all of you at EV Guy 7, for taking the time to post your questions. At Cursing 1, thank you. At Raja Krishna 22, thank you. At AJ 9106, thank you for taking the time. Syed Ahmed, thank you. RP, thank you. Really appreciate you guys taking the time here to join me and post those questions and your interaction. If you're not following me, again, please, follow me on Twitter at the H1B Guy for more information surrounding employment-based immigration benefits, news, advice, and opinions. I'm going to ask you to check out the H1BGuy.com. Just really appreciate all that take time to read my content and all of your support. Syed, thank you. Listen, I can't do this without you guys. I'm currently at 328 subscribers here on YouTube. I need more subscribers. I need your guys' help. Share my videos, like my content, comment on my videos if you can. YouTube loves that the algorithm loves it. And as I've said, when I started this channel, I didn't realize that this was where the platform was going to go, but I am the H1B guy. I literally live, breathe, and love this stuff. And I've never felt more fulfilled in my career than I do right now. And if I can help you in any way, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear how I can or advise you accordingly. Everyone's situation is unique and everyone's story is different. And one of the goals of this channel is to tell more of those stories, as I do through the Stamp It Out series, as I try to do through these Q&As here, because every one of your situations is different, and I just love to talk about it. And I think what makes me unique and what a lot of you have been drawn to is that I bridge the gap between employers, immigration attorneys, and you, the employee. Because understand, the immigration attorney's client is your employer, it's not you. And if I can help you bridge that gap, please, I'd love to know how. Syed, thank you for taking the time. Just really means a lot. Abhijit, good to see you. Thank you for joining me today. I always appreciate it. I don't think you've missed one of these live streams that I've done in the last couple of months. So just thank you. But Abhijit asks, couple of lawsuits. Nevertheless, does any perm or H1 transfer now need to follow increased wages? I think so. Again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a paralegal. But yeah, I would make sure that I'm meeting the current new wage level standard that's been set. Um, I know that could be difficult for a lot of you out there. I know that's going to be a big challenge. But yeah, I would, until we hear something, that says there's been a temporary injunction, or that executive action has been rescinded. Yes. Wow. I mean, isn't that's scary to think about, though, isn't it? That right now, if you're making 110 and your new wage is 140 and your employer's not going to pay for it, your future's in jeopardy. It's pretty scary. But Abhijit, thank you. I always enjoy your questions. At Synapse660 asks, what is your guess on EB3 movement in November 2020 visa bulletin? So just to kind of rehash that, as I said at the beginning, at Synapse, thanks for taking the time to join the live stream here today and post your comment. But I covered final action and filing dates. These are just my predictions. Utilizing rapid forward movement as the definition, my prediction is 18 months forward movement, and that's across all four categories. So 4 categories I'm referring to are final action dates for India, employment base 2 and 3, final filing dates for India, employment base 2 and 3. And so I'll just go over those really quickly. Employment base 2 for India, October bulletin shows September 1st, 2009. I'm projecting and predicting March 1st, 2011. Final action date for India, EB3, currently January 15th, 2010. I'm predicting July 15th, 2011. And then filing dates for India, the filing dates, EB2, May 15th, 2011. And I'm predicting November 15th, 2012. And then EB3, January 1st, 2015. I'm predicting July 1st, 2016. Excuse me. Yes, July 1st, 2016. So basically, if you just take the current October 2020 visa bulletin, I just projected and forward movement 18 months across all 4. I doubt that that's the case for all 4, but will be very interesting to see what that definition is of rapid forward movement per the Department of State. So thank you for your question. Really appreciate that. So I think that is going to wrap it up here today. Wanted to thank everyone who has taken the time here to join the live stream. I just really appreciate your support. I can't do this without you. Tomorrow, there'll be another episode of the H1B Guy News for the week ending October 23rd, 2020. We'll continue to monitor the H1B IFR lawsuits. We'll definitely continue to monitor the November visa bulletin and, keep our eyes open for news. I will tell you, I'm really excited, and this content, the blog post, Synapse, thank you so much, man. Just really appreciate your comment, and thanks for joining me. If you haven't, I'd like to ask you, go check out the H1B Guy video that I did on Tuesday. The H1B Guy Calculates, where I cover I-140 immigrant petitions and approvals from fiscal year 2009 to fiscal year 2019. There is a lot of data that is in that video, so it may be a little hard to follow, but unfortunately, that's just how I structured the content. I know a lot of you have loved the data, but if you want to see the data in black and white, you can go to my website. It's on the h1bguy.com. And check that out where I've grabbed the data. I've also got the source link that's taken directly from uscis.gov. But that video is doing really well. A lot of you seem to really be watching it and enjoying it. If you'd like to see more data-driven content like that, if you come across any interesting data that you think I need to know about, again, email me at theh1bguy@gmail.com. Would really appreciate it. But going to go ahead and wrap up this live stream now. If you haven't already, please like this video. If you've enjoyed this live stream today, thank you for those that took the time to comment. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. It helps me to produce more content like this for you. Click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime a new video goes up here on this channel. I want to say thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your interaction. But most of all, I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to watch my content. I really appreciate it. The H1B Guy, your global source for all things H1B.